Hello, Ruben here. Welcome to this week's show and may the force be with you. We've got a huge packed show this week, including bargains, freebies, developer updates, news, but we're going to kick off with something a little bit special. So just to switch things up, I'm going to start this week's show not with the news, but with an unknown gem, and this one is very close to my heart. First up, a little background information on this. A couple of months ago, I was approached by Dickie from Impact Soundworks. They're a great company, they put out a lot of fab libraries, and he wanted me to give him some support on an upcoming project, so I was more than happy to help, although he didn't tell me at the time exactly what it was. He did say that it was a new venture he was setting up, and I assumed it would be a few small libraries in development, something like that. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago and he sends me information on a massive new set of orchestral libraries called Palette and his new company Red Room Audio. Now, in these days of pre-release trailers and drip feeding people information, I was quite overwhelmed by the info dump. After digging into these libraries, I have to say I was very impressed, so I'm giving Red Room Audio their own little spot on this week's show. Palette is a collection of 4 orchestral libraries for Contact Player 5.6.8 and above, and each of these deals with a specific element of scoring. So you've got Sketchpad, which has the workhorse patches, Melodics, which has orchestrated lines and melodies all sampled in true legato. Orchestral Effects is a big collection of aleatoric orchestra and choir performances, and Runs and Arps, well, that does exactly what it says on the tin. It contains tempo synced runs and arpeggios in lots of different scales and all root keys. I'm not going to delve into the series in too much specific detail here, as I've already covered a lot of these details on the 5 different walkthroughs that I've put together for Red Room Audio. Do check those out on the Red Room Audio site. I edited them together and created all the audio examples, even though Dickie did all the voiceovers. Now, it's been a bit of a rocky start for Red Room Audio, as the overwhelming interest in their website has meant that their servers exploded and they went down for a couple of days. However, they're up and running now with all their products for sale and a bonus freebie which I'll cover later on in the show. Do check the link in the show notes for the full details about these. You can listen to the products, you can watch my videos, and quite frankly, they're brilliant libraries, so I do recommend them. So let's get on to the news. First up, with the Nagoya Harp from UVI. UVI seem to have been a little bit quiet lately on the sample front, but they've bounced back with this cool little Eastern harp library. It's nearly 7 GB in size and it's got 2 different instruments, 50 presets, and runs in the free UVI workstation. It's got loads of different articulations, including palm mutes, hammer-ons and pull-offs, and there's also an onboard effects section which is pretty extensive. It's possibly just me, but I've never heard of this specific type of instrument before, so I'd be interested in checking it out. I do love the sound. Have a look at it for yourself at the UVI website. Sampletraxx seem to have another hit on their hands with their new library, which is called Torsion. It's got 86 different Contact instruments, runs in the full version of Contact 5.5 and above, and this is full of high-tech futuristic sounds. So think Transformers, Pacific Rim, lots of servos and futuristic interface noises, that sort of thing. The samples are powered by Audiority's The Forge engine, which has loads of effects and it's super easy to use as well. I do love that engine, so you can check out Torsion at the link in the show notes. Next up, DRONAR Vintage Synth by Gothic Instruments. It's available on the Time and Space website. I'll admit that I wasn't super impressed by the last DRONAR offering from Gothic Instruments. It just wasn't that useful to me personally, although the sounds were pretty good. However, I can see their new module that they released this week getting a lot more play. This runs in the full version of Contact 5.7.1 and above. It's 3.5 GB in size, and you've got 259 different patches, and they've all got a kind of pad-like spacey analog quality. It's also pretty good for creating Stranger Things style leads. You will have to watch your CPU. It's a little bit heavy, I found, on that, but otherwise it's a great pack. There are discounts available for existing Gothic Instruments library owners, and there's intro discounts as well at the moment. Do check this out at the Time and Space website. I keep getting conflicting information about this latest library, but I think it's now released. It's Vikings by Keepforest. The collection is split into 2 distinct libraries, the first named Cinematic Punk Folk Trailer Toolkit, or a mouthful, and the second Cinematic Metal Toolkit. It requires the full version of Contact 5.6.8 to run, and it needs 22 GB of hard disk drive. The interface is beautiful and the sounds are hard hitting, and they're going to be useful for hybrid, trailer and industrial tracks. There are pulse, string and percussion designers and loads of different guitar, drum kits, synths and effects in there. I'll be honest here in that I found it really difficult to listen to the narration on the walkthrough videos, but the sound ones are just great and they show off the bold and punchy samples really well. There's more info on Vikings at the Keepforest website. And lastly this week, it's another stellar sound design entry from Cinetools. It's called Galactica and features over 1200 futuristic sound effects and atmospheres. This one is more on the sound design tip rather than music, but I think it's pretty cool how they include lots of their original source samples from various machinery, so you can delve into those and mangle them up into your own creations. Do check it out at the link in the show notes. So before I get started with this week's bargains, don't forget that everyone and their mama seem to have some kind of Christmas countdown going on at the moment, and that includes 8DO, Time and Space and Sonokinetic, who I mentioned last week. They're all doing big discounts and free stuff. Don't forget to bookmark those sites and check back every day if you don't want to miss out on them. I also want to give a big shout out to a few specific developers who've been in touch and have nice sales going on right now. So that's Audiofire, Function Loops, Contact Hub, Realitone, Stigmatized Productions, Facilian Studios, Musical Sampling, New Loops and Mode Audio. If you've got the time, do have a look at their websites. They've all got fab sales on at the moment. In fact, almost everybody's having a sale at the moment, so I'll be highlighting some of my favourites in the Samplecast newsletter. Do head to the website to sign up for that. So first off, the Cinematic Solutions collection from Zero G. This is one of the biggest deals this week. It's almost 18 gigabytes of drones, effects, atmospheres, metals and more from Zero G. I've got some of these libraries myself and I use them all the time to create beds and soundscapes. They're really quick and easy to use. So you get a bundle of 6 different libraries here: Epic Horizons, Dark Skies, Critical Mass, Maximum Force, Cyberstorm and Aftershock. Don't know who's coming up with those names, but they're very good. My favourite one is probably Dark Skies, but they're all very usable. This bundle normally retails for $500, but it's now 80% off, just $99. Do check the link in the show notes for full details. The offer from VST Buzz this week is something a little bit different. It's a plugin for polishing up your mixers, and I have to say it works very well. This uses a combination of compression, EQ, widening and limiting, and it's called Boost. It's by Sample Magic. It's a really clever little thing and can make almost anything sound more exciting and energetic. There's a demo version available on the VST Buzz website, and the full version is currently 70% off at €27. Lastly, it's always sad to see a company closing down, and I'm sorry to say that this week Triple Spiral Audio is saying goodbye to us, but the good news is that you can send them off in style with everything discounted by 50% on their site. They create lots of decent preset packs for many different synths, including Iris 2, Zebra, Zebra 2, Serum and Omnisphere, so do go and support them if you can. So welcome to this week's big review, and it's Balkan Ethnic Orchestra by Strezov Sampling. I debated for a while on whether to include this library as this week's big review, as the excellent Chris Harris over at Sample Spotlight has covered it recently. However, after playing with the library for a few days, I wanted to enthuse about it, as it's a really nice collection and deserves its own slot on the show. It's an almost 30 gigabyte library of Balkan instruments, gypsy sounds, vocals and soundscapes for Contact. It runs in the Contact Player 5.7.1 and above, so let's take a listen. The library is split into 5 distinct sections. You've got band, which is all solo instruments from a gypsy band. There's choir with R, A and a Scilla builder. You've got ethnic solo instruments, various pads playable on all keys, and a percussion patch, which is based on the engine from 2 pans. So let's start with that percussion, which is one of the most basic patches in the library, but like all of the instruments in this collection, you've got 2 microphone perspectives and you can adjust the close and hall positions. Each set of percussion instruments here has a zone and you can adjust the pitch and the transients. It's also possible to completely reorder the percussion on the keyboard keys if that's what you want to do. I was a bit surprised to hear whistling and shouts included in the percussion, but I guess why not? However, all of the percussion across the board is very well recorded. With the ethnic instrument category, there's a lot to get into. Some of these instruments are legato, some have drones or rhythms in the left hand and playable legato on the right. It's a real mixture, so you do have to learn how to play each one, and some of them are quite different from one another. For such a wide range of instruments, that's really the only way to do it in the sampling world, but thankfully the detailed manual has lots of information on this, so do keep that manual handy when you're experimenting with the instruments. The highlights for me here include the gypsy romantic violin, the dudaks and the kavals, not something I'd heard sampled in too much detail before. Next up, the pads patch, which is a lovely mix of over 30 pre-rendered soundscapes, and you can play these across the whole keyboard. Now, the only thing I'd like to have seen here is the constituent parts split out into stems, a bit like they do in the various patches of Project Sam's Lumina library. Then you could have mixed and matched these, which would have been fantastic, but the sounds here you've got already, they're great, they're nice long pads and they're really atmospheric. Next up, the choirs. These sound nice and detailed as it's just 4 singers that have been recorded. For my taste, the performances here have way too much baked in vibrato in the high dynamics, but the soft and low dynamics do sound lovely. That's just my personal preference and probably authentic to the region's singers, but it's not quite to my taste. The Scilla builder syllables, they do sound very clean and clear, and they're a great complement to Strezov sampling's other choir libraries, and the way that you build up these syllables within the instrument using the matrix, that functions in exactly the same way. Lastly, you've got the band instruments. These are intentionally rough and ready. It's a collection of instruments that work well together, mostly in a kind of gypsy Balkan style, although I didn't find some of them that realistic sounding, especially the trombone sustains in the high dynamic range. Now, these are notoriously difficult to get right in the sampling world, so I'll forgive George Strezov for not quite being able to pull that off, but a lot of the other instruments are solid. So in conclusion, this is a library with quite a specific use, but it's been very well thought out and very well done. Most of these instruments you won't already have featured in your collection, and some of these, they're the first time that I've heard these instruments sampled, so that's a big plus for this library. Grouping together all of the gypsy band instruments is a genius idea, and on the rare occasion when I would need such an ensemble to play together, this would be the first point of call for me. Some of the other patches are more standalone in nature and function very nicely, although as I said before, you will need to reference the manual for some of them to be sure that you're not missing out on any of the articulations. Overall, I would have appreciated a few more pre-recorded phrases, as some of the competitors' standalone libraries have 10 times as many, but then you'd have to buy loads of those individual libraries to make up anything like the number of instruments within Balkan Ethnic Orchestra. So overall, it's a big thumbs up from me for this varied and unusual collection. Do head over to the Strezov sampling website for more details. So first in this week's update, it's Spitfire Audio, and they've recently updated one of their most popular libraries. They've given Albion a spit and polish with a new update, so it's become Albion 1 10th Anniversary Edition. It's been redesigned, it's got new percussion, new loops and mixers, and 15 new combination patches. Existing Albion 1 owners will get a free update via email, but if you've got the old legacy Albion library like I have, the upgrade is going to cost you £99, euros or dollars. Check it out at the Spitfire Audio website. This next update is for Cinebrass Core, bringing it up to version 1.7. It's an update to their big workhorse brass library and introduces adaptive legato into the patches and 4 new patches covering ensemble chords and trombone ensembles. It's free for existing users at the Cinesamples website. Lots of companies being very generous with their freebies this week, and following on from this week's biggest release, Palette, Red Room Audio have released a dedicated freebie which covers choir, snaps, claps, slaps, stomps and shouts. Everyone I know that's picked this up has loved it and it's perfect for epic trailer tracks. Do check out the link in the show notes for details. As is customary this time of year, Heavyocity have released a bunch of loops culled from their most popular libraries. This year it's 60 loops derived from Novo Modern Strings. It's free to download at their site, do head over there to take a look. Fracture Sound's festive freebie is a nicely sampled desk bell with 33 round robins per note. It's got a delicate glockenspiel-like tone and is perfect for Christmas tracks. Head to their site for details. And in a similar vein, Spitfire Audio's Lab Keyed Glock is now available, so if you go to the show notes, I've put in a direct download link there. It's a little freebie that they sampled in just one day for a tutorial video, and definitely worth picking up. Lastly, I'll include the VK1 Viking synth from Blamsoft, and I've included it as technically it could be free. It's pay as you want on the Blamsoft site, and it's a plugin for Mac and PC. It models a monophonic analog synth and has a whole heap of oscillators, waveforms and filters. Do check it out and don't forget to throw them some money if you end up using it. This week's Little Wonder is a funny little oddity that I found advertised on VI Control the other day, and it hasn't got much love, so I thought I'd maybe bring it to some people's attention. It's called Sketching Strings, although the sounds here are actually been created by synths, so it's a bit of an odd name. It's a very simple library of sustains that can be used to create pre-mock-up string lines, but I can also see it successfully being layered behind sampled strings to give it some depth. I rather like the sound, the flexibility seems nice, and I literally knew nothing about the company behind this as they seem to be brand new, so they could probably do with your support. Do go and have a look at the Sketching Strings website. Thanks so much for watching. It's been a long show, but I hope you've managed to get something out of it. Don't forget to check out the Samplecast website, and also you can download the Samplecast podcast each week, an extended version of the show with lots more audio examples and chat. And I will see you very soon. Bye bye now.